When Wang Zheng arrived on the Titan star, all was quiet, although the surface of Tita star did not appear to have changed much, but there was much internal disorder. The patrols in the city had increased. After leaving Tita star for some time, Wang Zheng was still familiar with the place. Lan Ling and the rest were overjoyed that he had come. In fact, even Lan Ling and Mu Sen did not know that Wang Zheng was here to help with their problems. Elder Mu Sen, how is Rara Darai's condition? Bring me to him, please. Wang Zheng wanted to confirm Rara Darai's situation. Mu Sen and Lan Ling had thought that Wang Zheng was here on holiday, but in the present circumstances, nobody was really in the mood. Follow me, then. His wounds are strange. They don't look that serious, but they haven't healed. Lan Ling frowned as she said. The opponent had been clear in delivering a wound that humanity's medical prowess could not heal. It created a sense of terror. After all, Rara Darai was the emblem of Tita Star. Is there more detailed data? Wang Zheng asked. We collected some things recently. Let me send them to you. But rest assured, we have our ways to deal with it. Lan Ling forced a smile. Lan Ling, you're treating me as an outsider. I only know the gist of things. Let's take a look at Rara Darai first, then we'll talk. The Tita people and Lan family's ability was considerable, but still far from the rapidly developing Milky Way alliance. The ride arrived at the hospital. Mechas and giants were patrolling, heavily armed. When Wang Zheng saw Rara Darai was still in a coma. Dr. Carl, please tell Mr. Wang Zheng about the current Titan situation. Wang Zheng's arrival had to be kept as low profile as possible. Everybody met directly at the hospital. Seeing Yan Xiaoshu and Yi Zisu unharmed, Wang Zheng relaxed a little. The Titan's external wounds are not serious, but energy levels are curiously weak. Given our present equipment, checks have come up clean, but he does not wake. Carl was the most famous doctor on Tita Star, but still helpless in such situations. But Mu Sen and the rest did not dare to cast their nets outwards. Titan was the invincible emblem, and if it were known that one had fallen so easily, things would fall into chaos. Wang Zheng nodded. Let me take a look. Carl and the other medical personnel looked towards Mu Sen, and only moved aside on a nod. They were curious as well. Where did this young man come from? Could he heal the sick? However you looked at it, it did not look so. Wang Zheng could feel a wave of death caging Rara Darai's body. The opponent's ability was indeed very strong. Tita Star limited energy and ability X only wind ability could be freely used. Of course, this did not limit those that were super strong. The primordial regression technique entered the third phase, and Wang Zheng had stepped into Tita Star a completely different person. More accurately, Tita Star was a planet that contained vast amounts of life force, which was why supergravity energy ore had accumulated. It also had bountiful natural resources. Out of the minor cycles, this was a wood planet. Wood's direct responses were life, wind, lightning, which was why it had given rise to giants and the Tita civilization. As for the overpowering wind advantage, it also stifled the usage of the other affinities, although they did not disappear. Against a true pro, there were ways to avoid this rush and still bring power to bear. Only, such a primitive planet would definitely not attract such pros. Of course, even so, there was still a degree of disadvantage. Placing his hand on Rara Darai's chest, the primordial regression technique gradually entered his body. The wood ability in Rara Darai formed a protective barrier, protecting Rara Darai's life force. The external wounds were not the main problem, and Wang Zheng's expression turned grave. He could basically tell that the killer at least possessed wood ability X, and a rarely seen poison element as well. Such a poison element would not immediately kill Rara Darai, but would slowly sap at him until he died. Such an ability X attack was not something that the average machine could discover, especially not on the backward Tita Star. Wang Zheng, what's the situation? Mu Sen was the most anxious. At this moment, the door opened, and a scar-covered giant walked in. Ada, you must save the Titan General. I'll give my life for it. Shan Meng said. As the leader of the Imperial Guard, he had been useless. He punished himself daily in the way of the Tita people. Great Shan Meng, the great Titan's life is in no danger, Carl said testily. These giants were brainless. Wang Zheng smiled slightly. Rest easy. I came in time. He has been poisoned. The energy is slowly eating away at his life force. The opponent must have planned to use this method to threaten and weaken Tita Star. Everyone was shocked, except for Mu. Senator Mu Sen seemed to know that such a situation would happen. He gave a gratified smile. We Tita people have been waiting for your arrival. Elder Mu Sen, please ask everybody else to leave the room, and take every precaution. Shan Meng, stay here. We need some time. The situation is tricky, Wang Zheng said. Mu Sen nodded. Yi Zisu and the rest held back what they wanted to say. Clearly saving Rara Durai was the priority here. The door close. Carl and the rest were not convinced. Poison? This was a joke. Was this guy some kind of medium or something? Esteemed Mu Sen, this young man is spouting nonsense. In the field of medicine, I'm the authority, the great titan. Mr. Carl, I know you mean well, but you need not care about this matter from now on. Mu Sen waved a hand. Mu Sen's Governor-General aura had become more severe. After so many years, Mu Sen truly understood humanity now. He knew their strengths and weaknesses. But here, the Tita people did not have these flaws of humanity. In truth, Mu Sen believed that Wang Zheng had a shot at saving Tita Star, but he did not think that Wang Zheng was omnipotent, especially not in this aspect. As a result, he had not dared to hope for this at all. But when Wang Zheng said he could treat him, Mu Sen believed him without hesitation. The Tita people judged others differently. At the door, only Mu Sen, Lan Ling, Yi Zisu and Yan Xiaoshu were left. Lan Ling was familiar, but Yan Xiaoshu and Yi Zisu only interacted rarely with Mu Sen, and Mu Sen did not care too much about them. The giants and mecha guarded outside, to ensure that nothing went wrong. Shan Meng helped Rara Durai up. Clearly Rara Durai was just too big. Wang Zheng alone would not be able to support him. This was no ordinary poison, but a very powerful ability. Primordial regression technique was a super strong technique that controlled the minor cycle. This stable ability could suppress that evil energy. It was precisely because Rara Durai had the basic energy that he had imparted that he could still resist. Otherwise, Rara Durai would not be simply in a coma. But it had to be said that the opponent was fearsome. To be able to wound such a strong titan to this extent, his ability X grade must be considerably higher than his own. Primordial regression technique entered Rara Durai's body. Rara Durai's body, which only had the strength to defend itself, felt like it tasted the first drop of dew after a drought. The titan's body was indeed the symbol of life. Once it received external assistance, it began to resist vigorously. After the primordial regression technique entered, it began to contest with the opponent's power. The opponent's remnants of power in Rara Durai's body were actually this strong. Ability suppression had to be stronger than the user, but primordial regression technique would not care about this. After all, the user was not present. Although this wave of energy was stubborn, but it could not hold the combined efforts of Wang Zheng and Rara Durai. Gradually, that invasive pressure that suppressed Rara Durai's strength transformed from an offensive to defensive stance. Wang Zheng's primordial regression technique was the leader of the minor cycle, and gradually became familiar to this power's nature. If Wang Zheng had not entered the third stage of the primordial regression technique, he would have been helpless before this major cycle power, but now things were different. Wang Zheng's primordial regression technique swallowed and digested the opponent's power, also analyzing it. It was clear that the opponent's ability was definitely B rank and above. The energy quality was rare, and at the same time clear that the opponent did not only have this ability. Although the energy that had spread in Rara Durai's body was a rare wood type, but if he had not broken through Rara Durai's defenses, such an attack was ineffectual. From the way this ability worked, it would only come into use when the opponent was in a hapless situation, which meant that the killer had definitely broken through Rara Durai's defenses. After meeting Old Joe, Wang Zheng had begun to realize just how vast the world was. Strong people were everywhere, and one could not underestimate anybody easily. The opponent's power was indeed stubborn. Even the last vestiges resisted bitterly. Rara Durai's strength had already begun to recover. The Titan Life Force's recovery abilities were even stronger than imagined. Only, Rara Durai had not yet mastered his own strength, yet alone to use his abilities. Something had occurred to Wang Zheng. Simply teaching him basic techniques was clearly not enough. With foundations like this, he could be made stronger. Giant body's composition was very similar to humans, but also different. Perhaps just a 16-point technique would be enough. The remaining energy was stubborn, but could not stand up to the awesome power of primordial regression technique. Although his ability X rank was inferior to this energy, using sheer brute force, he eradicated the last bit of energy. Such a life force poison was like a seed that could germinate at any time. After Wang Zheng had thoroughly cleansed the poison, 6 hours had passed. Although this poison had not started out that strong, but this ability's strength was that it would grow silently. Once triggered, it would tap into Rara Darai's own life force to fight against Rara Darai. How could one hope to defeat oneself? As a result, they sank into a coma and waited for death to take them. If Wang Zheng had not come, things would have gotten troublesome. When Wang Zheng breathed a huge sigh of relief, some ink-colored balls surfaced from Rara Darai's body, with a foul smell. Shan Meng, put Rara Darai down. Ada, the Titan is fine? Shan Meng's look was self-berating. A giant held responsibility and honor as their way of life. His existence was to protect the Titan. But in the end, he was unharmed, while the Titan had almost died. Wang Zheng smiled. It's all right now. Tell me about the situation then. Wang Zheng was in no hurry to let the others in. He wanted to continue observation for a while, and also understand the situation. Shan Meng recounted the incident of Rara Darai being attacked. The giant had been too careless. They had always felt that the puny humans were not their match. If the opponent was using a mecha, that might have been something, but the opponent had not. As a result, he had been sneaked up on. Shan Meng had only seen a black shadow. After a brief clash, the enemy had run. Rara Darai has sustained minor wounds, which did not mean much to giants. Scars were trophies of the giants. But Rara Darai had collapsed on the second day, and his condition had begun to worsen, while checks had come up empty. When Rara Darai opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Wang Zheng. He smiled. Ada, am I dead? Wang Zheng was exasperated, and rapped him on the head. If you're dead, and you can see me, doesn't that mean I've kicked the bucket too? You swine. Check yourself and see if there are any more problems. Rara Darai sat up, and rotated his neck. Seems like I'm all recovered now. Ada, you've saved me again. You punk, you're a feisty one. If you died, Shan Meng would have followed you as well. How many times have I told you that there's always someone stronger? There are strong people abound in the Milky Way, and you can't be careless. The emotional state of giants, in Wang Zheng's eyes, was just like children. Rara Darai rubbed his head ashamedly. Titans were only like that in front of Wang Zheng. Shan Meng, tell Mu Sen, and put their worries at ease. I need to talk to Rara Darai for a while. Yes, Ada. Giants were also simple creatures. Seeing Rara Darai's recovery, Shan Meng immediately leapt up like a child. Only, he was too boisterous, and his head crashed into the ceiling, shaking the entire room. From outside the door, a cheer erupted. Wang Zheng wanted to understand the fight details from Rara Darai. Hearing Rara Darai's narrative, Wang Zheng started to get a headache. In Rara Darai's fight with the opponent, it was not that he could not keep up with the opponent's actions, but that the opponent was consciously testing Rara Darai's strength. Which meant that Rara Darai's current situation was completely unable to test the opponent's ability. This was a sticky situation. If such a killer could not be quickly dealt with, then Tita Star would have no rest. Ada is here now, I have no worries, Rara Darai grinned. He was clearly happy, and looked like a big burden was off his mind. Wang Zheng was not sure whether to laugh or cry. Why were they still fooling around like kids? But Wang Zheng knew Rara Darai's personality all too well. Tita people were naturally free, and now they had to shoulder too much. The cooperation with humans, to the primitive Tita people, was a burden. This was something that Rara Darai, as a Titan, had to accept whether he liked it or not, and above that, perform well. This matter needed to be discussed for good with everyone. It had to be prioritized. In the meeting room, Wang Zheng was introduced to everyone. The good cheer that had ensued from Rara Darai's revival quickly dissipated. Boss, are there such monsters in this world? Yan Xiaoshu asked. mouth open in surprise. In his worldview, humans were normal, weak. But in Wang Zheng's introduction, such a cohort of unimaginable monsters actually existed, who could snatch victory and walk out from 10,000 soldiers alive. Basically, when one reaches the Earth grade, they're not someone that can be easily defeated by numbers. And this person is at least Earth grade. I'm afraid he was not trying to kill Rara Darai, otherwise Rara Darai would not even be alive now, Wang Zheng said. Mu Sen nodded. Although we Tita people do not understand humankind's ability X, but I can feel that the life force of Titan is currently fading. The enemy's goal is to strike terror into our hearts, and eventually cow us. Everybody also understood that Rara Darai's life had been completely in the enemy's hands. When it came, Mu Sen had no choice but to bow to the power. Only, the enemy had slipped up. They still had the ace in the hole, Wang Zheng. Boss, since you could disperse the opponent's ability, that means you must be stronger than him. Let's find him and finish him. Tyrant Su's declaration was full of admiration. From young, he had depended on Wang Zheng in fights. He always rushed in bravely, knowing that someone great had his back. Wang Zheng shook his head, smiling bitterly. Although I could undo his ability, but you must know that the caster was not here. That person would be at the top, even in the elite academy. Then what can we do? Must we compromise? Yan Xiaoshu said blankly. This was completely different from his business world. The opponent did not even play negotiations with you, but went straight for your life. Yan Xiaoshu's clever brain had no space to shine. Compromising is out of the question. Firstly, we must determine the enemy's identity. Such a set of skills cannot possibly not have a name. Wang Zheng said, as long as we know his identity and unique abilities, there must be a way. Everybody had their weaknesses, otherwise these killers would have ruled the world long ago. I'll take care of that. Lan Ling said. The Lan family was not closed off from the world. They had their links with the outside world, and also had their own networks. And this was something that Yan Xiaoshu and Yi Zisu were far from being able to match. This was the inside advantage of aristocrats. But in fact, the Lan family was nothing much within the Milky Way alliance. Lan Ling, send me a copy of what you have as well. I'll look for some friends to check it out as well. Wang Zheng said. Everybody, please be careful. We're out in the open, and the enemy is in the shadows. Everybody nodded. This deserved caution. Such an opponent was even scarier than an army. You had no idea where he was, when he would appear, and who his target was. Elder Mu Sen, Lan Ling, the two of you must be especially careful. I think that person must know his plan has failed. He might act again soon. There was much that Wang Zheng wanted to say. Old Zhou had taught him much, not just in terms of using ability, but also some tactics to specifically deal with Earth-grade opponents, and these had honed Wang Zheng's perception. The scariest thing in this world was not the opponent's strength, but that you did not know how much stronger the opponent was. Oh, Lan Ling, did you check the entry records? How did the killer's mecha enter? Wang Zheng asked. Lan Ling frowned. I've put someone on it, but there have been no developments recently. Perhaps an inner agent from Tita Star supplied it. Yi Zisu shook her head. I've seen that mecha's basic movement and feel. It's a top-class standard in the galaxy, and impossible for Tita Star's current technology to produce. It's too unrealistic to say that the opponent has been preparing this for that long. Yi Zisu's analysis was on point. Tita Star in the past was not worth bringing in such people. Tita Star's information network was insufficient. This was not something that could be built overnight, but this matter was pressuring Mu Sen and the rest to find a solution. Tita Star needed to find some real friends in the Milky Way, and in a balanced environment. As the meeting ended, everyone parted with heavy hearts. Each hurried off to do their own preparations, and Mu Sen could not possibly avoid meeting people. It was precisely at these situations when one could only fortify the guard, unless the killer would create a public bloodbath. This was precisely what Wang Zheng was afraid of. He understood that person's strength, day and night, were of no difference to him. The key was in the opponent's goals. Of course, even the strongest person was still only human. In Tita Star's environment, the penalty against other ability X was high. Even if the opponent was Earth grade, he could still act freely. In the room, Yan Xiaoshu was sprawled messily all over the sofa. Boss, Why is it that the more we grow, the smaller we feel? Damn, this outside world is one tough nut to crack. Although she was a girl, Yi Zisu did not change much. Wang Zheng, how do you intend to deal with this matter? Ultimately, the Tita people had no way out, but they did. If things looked hopeless, they could actually abandon Tita Star. Zisu, you wouldn't be thinking of leaving this place, would you? If we leave Tita Star, we'll be back to maggot status. Yan Xiaoshu postured belligerently. He was unsatisfied. No, even if it was not for these, I would still not abandon Rara Darai and the rest. Wang Zheng shook his head. D*MN, I knew you were that type. Right? Lan Ling seems to have some kind of life debt with you. The kind that one must give one's heart and soul to repay. Yan Xiaoshu teased. He was thick-skinned. If he could not solve it, he would just not think about it. How about I bequeath it to you? Sure, sure. We're two brothers in this world, there's no you and I, Yan Xiaoshu laughed. Careful Lan Ling doesn't castrate you, Yi Zisu said. Tyrant Su shivered. Girls shouldn't be so cruel, okay? Wang Zheng, if things turn sour, we might still have to retreat. Other things can be earned back when lost, but we only have one life. Yi Zisu was still calm about this. Wealth was outside of her concerns. All she cared about was Wang Zheng. Given another few years, she believed that such a person would not faze him, but Wang Zheng was still young, and had only been at Elite Academy for a semester. As long as he had the space to develop normally, Wang Zheng could have a bright future. In this aspect, Yi Zisu was being completely selfish. Wang Zheng smiled. He knew both of them cared about him, and he replied kindly. With the two of you around, I'm unwilling to die as well. But this matter might have a result really soon. Besides, it's not like I'm without my own sources of help. That's right. Boss, you must have made friends with many pros at the Elite Academy, right? Call up a few to scare that killer to death. Wang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Do you think I'm the founder of Elite Academy? And with this person's standard, he would be at the top even in Elite Academy. If there was a chance of victory, he would ask Zhang Shan and Meng Tian for help, but first, he had to confirm the opponent's identity. If it was really hopeless, he would have to think of something else. If worse came to worst, he might have to ask Butcher for ideas. All he knew up to this point was that everyone in Genesis Coffee looked like a normal person, but each was someone important. Only at the crucial moment would he trouble them. Who did you give the information to? Yi Zisu asked curiously. A classmate. Wang Zheng smiled. A girl, it must be a girl. Yan Xiaoshu immediately leapt up. TCH. How is your nose so sensitive? Ha. If it were a guy, you would have said so immediately. I know you, Yan Xiaoshu said smugly. I Xiaolu, you know her as well. From the Aishi Financial Group in the Hail Cloud Alliance. The space program only made it thanks to their intervention. Wang Zheng said. This person was someone that Yan Xiaoshu and Yi Zisu both knew. At that time, they had been strapped for cash. Of course, the Aishi Financial Group had made their own tidy sum in the end. Ding dong, as they spoke, the Skylink rang. A projection bloomed, and it was indeed I Xiaolu. Classmate Xiaolu, let me introduce you. This is Yi Zisu, designer of Wind God. Yan Xiaoshu, my childhood friend, Wang Zheng said. How do you do, beautiful? Wang Zheng and I grew up in the same pair of pants. We must talk more in the future. Yan Xiaoshu was panting up the pole seeing a babe. I Xiaolu had seen many of his kind, and was well equipped to deal with those like Yan Xiaoshu. But today, she was in no mood to joke. Wang Zheng, how did you get involved with him? I didn't get involved with him, he got involved with me. How did you find out who he was so fast? Wang Zheng was shocked at Ai Xiaolu's efficiency. Barely any time had passed. Ai Xiaolu laughed bitterly. It didn't take much. This person is infamous in the underworld. His nickname is Heaven. A confirmed Earth grade. And, can be regarded as a senior. Wang Zheng was taken aback. How could it be like this? I don't know the secret details, but you know that the X-Power leaderboards only details the rankings. This guy is in the top 1000, an elite that we completely cannot stand up against. No matter the reason, you had best stay far away from him. Ai Xiaolu had no intention of shaking Wang Zheng's confidence. She had seen him in action before, but he was definitely not an equal for a pro of the Earth grade. What's his ability? According to the data I have, it's a rare form of the wood affinity. He's a high flyer, and it's unclear how many abilities he has derived. As a killer famous in the underworld, it's camouflage and bone-eating poison. But you must know that as an Earth grade expert, this is no small matter. Thanks, I got it. Wang Zheng, don't be rash. I know you are confident, but you still have a few years to go before you are capable of fighting with the Earth grade. You have a bright future ahead of you. Ai Xiaolu said seriously, although she had not known Wang Zheng for too long, but she understood his personality all too well. Such characters were seen through easily. I know. If I really can't beat him, I will definitely run. I'm no fool. Wang Zheng smiled reassuringly. Ai Xiaolu knew that such words were useless. I'll have the relevant data sent to you. You must be careful. Ai Xiaolu's words had left the three of them looking at each other. The situation is worse than they had expected. Who was it that had been so thorough in inviting such a big shot to Tita Star? Lan Ling can give up on checking the mech's origin as well. It won't be found, Wang Zheng said. Since he had come from Elite Academy, then most had access to space crystals, and no matter how strict the regulation was, Wang Zheng did not believe that none had leaked out, especially to the underworld. Once the situation had been explained, Yi Zisu and Yan Xiaoshu felt like they were living in a completely different world. Why did such a scary group actually exist in the world? Wang Zheng, speak up. What's to be done? There was not the slightest shred of fear in Wang Zheng's eyes, but instead a burning will for battle. What an opportunity. But this was something that he could not accomplish alone. But if a certain somebody was willing to lend a hand, this could be an interesting hunt. As for who was hunter and hunted, that remained to be seen. Seeing Wang Zheng's strange smile, Yan Xiaoshu knew that Wang Zheng was going to go crazy. Sigh, in the end, he was just a playmate. But Yan Xiaoshu was also thinking. Since Wang Zheng was so confident, then there was nothing to be afraid of. Ai Xiaolu and Wang Zheng lived in a different environment. Ai Xiaolu's dictionary revolved around the safe and stable. Things that were too dangerous, and unassured gains, were things that Ai Xiaolu would definitely not do. She had been nurtured thus from young. But Wang Zheng had grown up on a completely different trajectory. Achilles was surprised to hear this news. Wang Zheng had actually come to him? In truth, the two had come a long way together from IG. Achilles really admired Wang Zheng, only that the moon people were not too forward. They often cocooned themselves in an elegant shell. Therefore moon people always kept to themselves. But when Wang Zheng had taken the initiative, Achilles had felt surprised but pleased. Titan Star, Earth grade killer, Heaven. Milo, check the data on the underworld. Someone called Heaven, should be Earth grade. Achilles called through to Milo's Skylink. This matter roused his interest. Wang Zheng had invited him to Tita Star for a thrill, a very fatal game. And the word fatal deeply attracted Achilles. Spending his days holed up in the abyss did little to satisfy the pride in Achilles' bones. Earth grade killer, an invitation from Wang Zheng. These things deeply interested him. Milo sent the data over quickly. Heaven, Earth grade. Ability X ranking within the top 1000, and AA class criminal in the galaxy, with a bounty of 50 million. Intergalactic criminals were divided into 5 tiers. A-rank criminals were pretty much untouchable. These people were elite professionals cloistered in the darkness. But Milo's data was about the same as Ai Xiaolu's, even slightly less comprehensive. He had never been to Tita Star before, but he had heard endlessly about that mysterious planet. The energy was unstable, and many energy-type tools could not be used. As for Mecha, wind affinity was strengthened, while the other affinities were suppressed. And Achilles' energy was force field control, part of the major cycle. Tita Star's conditions might repel his ability, or become an extremely good match. On this point Achilles was not too worried, because the Heavenly King arts tended towards the wind affinity. Training on the moon was becoming stale. Since Wang Zheng had invited, why not go? Lai Xin, I'm borrowing the Mars VIP air route tomorrow. I'm going to Tita. It would take a while for his own people to settle those affairs, but it would be too easy for Lai Xin to just gesture. After Lai Guang had died, the world had not changed much for anyone else. It was like Lai Guang had never existed before. But to Lai Xin, it was an earth-tilting change. The sage had spoken to her at length before retreating into seclusion. Lai Guang had used his death to awaken Lai Xin's last sense, and understand the true essence of fire. If Lai Xin crumbled, then Lai Guang would have died in vain. It had to be said that these words had hit the nail on the head. If Lai Xin did not work hard, she would let Lai Guang down. But Lai Xin was plagued with complex emotions. Logic was logic, but no one understood the feelings between her and Lai Guang. They could not understand her pain. Why Tita Star? Lai Xin's face was unsmiling, completely different from before. But Achilles did not mind her cold manner. He smiled slightly and explained. Lai Xin was quiet for a while. I'll go with you. Achilles was taken aback. That place is suited to wind affinity, you. Regardless whether it was the Lai Flame technique or fire ability X, it was not well suited to her. I'm going. Kiki, your wish. Leaving on the dot at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Arrange it. Lai Xin nodded silently. She was dying to leave Mars, to go to a foreign place. Titan Star, Earth-grade killer, sounded like heaven to her. Tita Star, outside of the city, was a beautiful forest. There dwelled many beasts unique to Tita Star, and also all kinds of beautiful and interesting flora. Tita Star could support giant life without lacking for food. Some planets suffered from famine after the soil became impoverished, but this had never been a problem for Tita Star. It was a planet infused with life force. Under the night sky, Tita Star looked even more unique, but presently, these woods housed a danger. A figure was idly watching the night sky, a straw in his mouth. Who would have thought that this rural place could actually tamper with his ability? The so-called Titans were just some simple-minded four-limbed humanoids, and not worth attacking. But his mission this time was not to kill, but to terrorize. This left him less than satisfied, but if there was a pro around, then it was a different matter. The black shadow flicked open the skylink idly. A name list appeared. Titan, Mu Sen, Lan Ling, Yi Zisu. Each of the four heads were worth 80 million. But now the price was about to increase. The black shadow smiled, revealing a set of clean white teeth that were especially sinister. Suddenly a shadow appeared in mid-air. This was one of the nocturnal predators on Tita Star, but the black shadow waved casually, splitting the beast in two without even a cry. In the city, Tita Star's curfew had been called off, and it was like nothing had happened. Against such a pro, there was no need to make a fuss. After all, they could not stop him. They must as well tighten defenses only on the crucial factors. Lan Ling was also hiring pros through the Lan family's channels. They could not depend on Wang Zheng alone for these things. Wang Zheng was not in the slightest bit nervous. It was rare that he had such free time to spend with Yan Xiaoshu and Yi Zisu. Each day he had to help Rara Darai regulate the breath of his body. He had to admit that a Titan's body was strangely different. Logically, any normal life force suppressed by such energy for so long would take at least months to recover. But Titans were in touch with nature. In 2 days he had more or less recovered. Rara Darai longed to go fight and rumble with Shan Meng. After lying for so long he felt like his body was rusting. When teaching Tita people, words were useless. One had to directly build with them. The strange thing was that the same method was very difficult for humans, but considerably more successful for giants. At least, Rara Darai was quick on the uptake. The technique unearthed one's natural ability. Humans had traversed from natural ability to intellect, and then back to natural ability. A bit like seeing a mountain for a mountain, then as something else, then again as a mountain. But the Tita people accomplished it in a step. This matter had roused in Wang Zheng a fierce desire to build a giant troop, so that Tita Star could at least defend itself in times like these. Although the galaxy was full of pros, but they were the gems, the result of the accumulation of human civilization's entire developmental process. The Tita people could not compete directly. But just in terms of body conditions, the Tita giants were very, very good. Rara, any feeling? After soothing it once over, Wang Zheng was a little fatigued. It was quite draining. Rara Darai worshipped Wang Zheng blindly. This adulation had not made him weaker as Titan, but in fact stronger. He felt that Wang Zheng was a reincarnation of his god, guiding him. That was why when Wang Jung wanted anything done, Rara Darai would always put in his 200% trust and carry it out, to astonishing results. When Rara Darai opened his eyes, he had been emitting a silver light from his eyes. His body was ensconced by the size of wind and lightning, and there had been a slight rumble of thunder. Ada, I feel like my body is charged with strength, and it seems like something outside is trying to befriend me. I feel the Tita Star, the motherly presence. Rara Darai's huge eyes were actually shimmering with tears. Wang Jung was shocked too. He had not thought that Rara Darai would have such positive reception to his techniques. This was wonderful. Rara Darai groveled even lower. My gratitude to Ada for bestowing strength upon me. I will defend the Tita Star. Wang Jung could see no way out of Rara Darai's adoration. He knew that this great lump depended on himself. He patted Rara Darai's huge head. Remember the feel of this technique. Choose those talented and loyal warriors among the giants to teach and build a team. Tita Star will definitely face even more challenges in the future. I cannot always be here, and you still have to overcome some hurdles yourself. Also, my friends are here, and you have to protect them. Ada, giants were not good at words. Rara Darai did not think that a stupid and weak being like himself would receive so much trust from Ada. In the Tita people's world, the fighter that lost had already become the weak one. As the Titan, yet so easily defeated, the position should by right be given to the victor. But that victor was not of Tita, but some monster. That killer will definitely return. You must work hard these few days, and aim to give that guy a surprise. Yes, Ada. Can you teach Junior Shan Meng personally? Rara Darai asked. Among the Tita giants, there would be an endless stream of people challenging Rara Darai, but Shan Meng would always stand on Rara Darai's side. He hoped that Shan Meng could also have such a chance. Wang Jung nodded. Off with you. Yes, Ada. Rara Darai excitedly left. Wang Jung was also surprised. He had not expected to have such powers after achieving the third breakthrough on primordial regression technique. His imparting of skills had become even more thorough, and Tita Star's situation meant that his analytical skills could not be affected. The previous way had its flaws. After all, the greatest influence on Tita Star was still the basic 5 abilities, but the rumor had spread and spread. In these few days, Wang Jung was not sitting idle as well. Any law could be used, especially in the natural world. Tita Star had its own unusual law, and he was afraid that it hid some greater power. And to Wang Jung, who controlled the minor cycle, it would be foolish if he could not tap into this power. To cross paths with an Earth-grade killer, he had to use his brain. That Achilles was coming was good news. With the addition of Rara Darai and Shan Meng, there was a chance against this killer called Heaven. All that was left was to look for a good chance and place. In the last few days, everyone had been lying low, in order not to give the killer opportunities. And Heaven had wanted to immediately show his colors, but found that his main targets were all squirreled away. No point forcing the issue, unless you were crazy or had a death wish. Facing that bullet storm was death. And although Heaven could not simply pack up and leave after that lone move, but he believed that these people could not stay hidden forever. Tita Star was an important location, and they had to make appearances. This would only increase anxieties, and they would eventually have to show themselves. So he was not worried. Tita Star's girls were nothing special, but the alcohol was great, especially the Tita Giant's own brew. That jug, that bowl, just looking at them gave him a sense of satisfaction. After a full week, Tita Star was currently experiencing a storm. In that period, there had been no calm. The only one who went out to deal with the outside world was Mu Sen, but he brought the heaviest protection with him, and made requests of his correspondents, even some that were rather unreasonable. Some of the ambassadors were unhappy, but these were ignored by Mu Sen. Given Tita Star's current important position, stubbornness just had to be accepted. Arbiter and Manalasuo were the most concerned. They wanted to take care of Tita Star's safety in this period, and also to build up Tita Star's military. It was the same old rhetoric. But once this balance was tipped, Tita Star's superior position would also disappear. Mu Sen must have used every trick in his diplomatic book to tide over these. And at this time, Achilles arrived. Wang Jung was surprised. Besides Achilles, Lai Xin had come as well. Only, he immediately saw that Lai Xin was being very clearly reserved, even filled with a killing energy. Lai Xin, you're here too? Wang Zheng smiled, glancing at Achilles. Achilles shrugged irritably. I was only passing by Mars to reach more quickly, but Miss Lai here wanted to join the party. Clearly Achilles had already felt some scary changes in Lai Xin on the journey here. Among the few of them, Lai Xin was the weakest. Women's bodies were not suited to Lai flame technique. This problem had been exacerbated at the end. At that time, Achilles had been curious as to what the Lai family had been thinking. They clearly knew this, yet still proceeded. Now the suspicions were thrown open. Clearly, the Lai family had anticipated this way in advance. But Lai Xin's breakthrough had some horrifying implications. The Lai Xin now was not the warm character she had been. Looking about her, she took a breath, and suddenly her hands roared with fire. This is Tita Star? It's not what I heard it was. Her words dripped with murderous intent. Wang Zheng and Achilles exchanged glances. They had both clearly felt the affinity suppression of the planet, but Lai Xin's power was completely unaffected. HMPH. Just a wood affinity planet that brags of itself so much. Wood feeds fire. As long as I am strong enough, I can bring forth even stronger power. Where is the killer? Bring him out, I'll kill him. Wang Zheng was stunned. Although he could feel Lai Xin's power, but an Earth-grade expert was nothing to be taken lightly. Follow me first. We need to prepare. The opponent's wood ability is nothing to take lightly, and I fear a connection with Elite Academy, Wang Zheng said. Lai Xin did not flare up in the end, and Achilles' smile was firmly fixed on his face. As the heir to an ancient family, perhaps the pressure here was stronger for others, perhaps even helplessly so. But to those from an ancient ancestry themselves, this was nothing mysterious. They merely confirmed if they were of a sufficient level to deal with it. And Wang Zheng himself only understood this logic after entering the third stage of the primordial regression technique. Lai Xin had broken through the moment she arrived. All he could say was that the Lai family inner workings, and her recent terrifying breakthrough, was mad through and through. He just had no idea what she had been through. Neither Wang Zheng nor Achilles were the nosy kind. If Lai Xin did not say, they would not ask either. Lan Ling had already arranged the accommodations, and now that they were all present, the next step would be to find a suitable opportunity to lure Heaven out. It was clear that Heaven preferred not to use a mech if he could. Although the mech's capabilities were strong, but it was inconvenient. To these killers who lived in the shadows, exposure was to be minimized. And Wang Zheng and the rest did not want to fight against such a mecha as well, so both sides were in agreement on this. It just remained to be seen who was predator and who was prey. Wang Zheng had found 2 helpers, and Lan Ling had also searched for professionals through her connections. Among Tita, there were also such experts, and she had also specially hired a large host of mercenaries from the neighboring planets. Now what needed to be discussed was the plan of action. Current location, Menlo City, a place that foreigners loved. It specifically catered many favorable policies, and was a city pushed to be set up by Tita Star. The hired mercenary group SX was placed here. Fusheng Bar. The mercenaries were currently enjoying themselves to the fullest. Tita Star had hired them at great cost, for their towering reputation. As long as they finished this single mission, their status would rise again, and future business would only increase. Boss, the Tita Star is so rich, isn't only asking for 500,000 too generous? Monkey, what do you know? Brother here has foresight. With this bodyguard mission, we will still eat well in the future. Besides, it's not like the Tita Star will lack for assignments in the future. But that Heaven guy sounds like a real expert. I heard he's a A-class criminal. Isn't the risk too high? Dog, if we were to take cases, it would definitely be S-class criminals. What's an A-class? You're too naive. What Heaven, isn't he just a scaredy cat who doesn't dare to show his face? If he did, we would finish him. Haha, King Kong, you wouldn't be thinking of doing him yourself, would you, with that tone of yours? You lot just don't know the appeal of guys. Maybe this Heaven is some petite young lad. The name already sounds so delicate, he must be firm and plump. If he falls into my hands, I'll ensure he goes to heaven. The mercenary blustered loudly and coarsely, but his face was covered with makeup, his hands clasped in a comical Buddha pose. The mercenaries were used to it already, but the other customers were disgusted. Just one look at this bunch and they knew they were nobody to be messed with. Just as he spoke, a terrifying scene ensued. The mercenary called King Kong still had a horrific grin on his face, but his entire head had flown off, spraying blood. The entire bar had erupted into chaos. In the dark, a shadow was darting back and forth, as though dancing oblivious to the commotion. To an upbeat tune, the brains were sent flying one by one. The world was finally quiet. When Lan Ling heard the news, she was shocked as well. Mu Sen had an important opening ceremony at Menlo City, and he had to be present. That was why the mercenary group had been sent over first, and also for them to familiarize themselves with the environment. In the end, the 12 officers of the mercenary group had all been killed before Mu Sen had even reached. Each had their brains carved out. It was a scene of no resistance. At this moment, Lan Ling believed Wang Zheng's words. This opponent was not someone that sheer numbers could overcome. Once they reached that level, normal people were like harmless lambs. Mu Sen had never underestimated the humans, but previously, they had only witnessed the horror of a collective army, but he had not thought that an individual terrorist could develop to this level as well. In these few days, Wang Zheng spent most of the time teaching Rara Durai and Shan Meng. Achilles was taking in the Tita Star situation with interest, as well as the current developmental needs. It was clear that the moon was also fairly interested in this program, although Achilles had not made any requests. This was also the pride in the moon people's bones, as though they did not care about anything. Lai Xin had beaten Rara Durai's entire Imperial Guard soundly, and the giants finally understood why the humans always said that women were the demons. Wang Zheng and Achilles also knew that something must have happened with Lai Xin. They wanted to ask, but did not know how to broach the topic. Wang Zheng could only let Shan Meng and the rest accompany Lai Xin to let out her feelings. It also helped to toughen up those guys. In the meeting room, Jasper was a little restless. To a businessman like him, earning money was secondary. His life was more important. And businessmen were familiar with the underworld. The name of heaven was well known. If he did not handle this well, his future business would be affected. More importantly, he did not know who the puppet master was. He had also used his connections to check. Through this cooperation, the Tadinger group would definitely not give up on it. All he had done on Tita Star had given him many bonus points. As long as he could handle this program well, he could be in charge of the entire Tadinger group in the future. The rest would be unable to compete. Not just any heir from a large stakeholder could ascend. No one was willing to hire a professional manager, and one could only stand in the circle once they held their own authority. Brother Yan, is there any guarantee in this business? I heard that the Titan has been seriously wounded and cannot recover. Jasper had returned to Leah Sphinx to manage the future investments, but had hurriedly rushed back after hearing this news. Yan Xiaoshu sucked in his stomach, which was indeed growing a little. What's your worry? It's never easy to do great things. Who cares whether it will be heaven or hell? Even if a dragon makes its way here, we still have to hold ground. Kiki, Brother Yan, you might not know, but this heaven is an elite killer even in the killer world. He has never failed a single contract before, and I hear that the mercenary group that Lan Ling hired has already been completely eliminated. Jasper drew a line across his throat. With that kind of cowardice, how do you even run a business? As long as your brain is working fine, there's no need for worry. That mercenary group was just to fool the opponent. Isn't it just an Earth grade guy? Even if a heaven grade guy came, we still gotta make sure his journey is a one-way trip. Yan Xiaoshu said calmly. Yan Xiaoshu's words had again mollified Jasper. A professional speech. He had thought that Yan Xiaoshu did not understand the opponent's ability, but he apparently did not even see him as worthy of consideration. As for you, just focus on doing what you are told to. Don't cry and fuss over everything. All will be well in a few days. Jasper had been used to this after the precedents. Each time things had seemed hopeless, Yan Xiaoshu had always risen to the occasion. This had engendered great confidence in Jasper. He clearly knew how strong an Earth grade was, and must have done his preparation. But how could he prepare? He also did not know. Once at this level, he could not simply be hired with money. The underworld had its own laws, just like them. But such a nucleus of power was not one that he could harness. An Earth-grade expert, could such people actually exist? But one thing was for sure, was that the Titan was definitely fine, otherwise Yan Xiaoshu would not be so calm. How do you see it? Lai Xin asked while examining the corpses. Achilles smiled slightly. From this wound, it's clearly not a blade, and also not pure energy. It looks like some very thin object, perhaps like a steel string. Soft weapon. This person is not only good at mecha, but his killing technique has been painstakingly refined. The effectiveness is very high. Achilles was not just an average student. Conversely, he had come into contact with such things from a young age, and had seen all kinds of killing techniques. The thing was, the Lai family was the same. Even Lear. These ancient traditional families were not the kind to sit and grow potted plants. Success lay at the end of a road of cruelty. The two of them could basically imagine that, in an instant, more than 10 heads would be flying. The opponent's ease and control over the entire battlefield was indeed intimidating. Once in the Earth grade, regardless of the person's martial arts, the physical skills would be considerable. Do you think Wang Zheng has changed a lot? Lai Xin suddenly asked a curious question. Achilles nodded. Ever since returning from the abyss, his aura has changed greatly. I think his cultivation technique must have had great improvement, although I have no idea which school he inherited his cultivation technique from. But I don't think it is any weaker than ours. Earth has always had many lines. That's Lear's biggest headache. And you too. The change is big. I didn't want to ask, but if you continue like this, the three of us are destined to die here. Achilles said uncharacteristically. Lai Xin looked at Achilles. Lai Guang is dead. Without saying anything else, Achilles already understood. As a family with an ancient art, Lai Xin's Lai Flame technique had broken free of the bottleneck, and perhaps had come to more secrets. Only, he had not thought Lai Xin would be so direct. This must mean that Lai Xin herself could not accept it. With the big battle imminent, Wang Zheng's mood was unusually good. The recent imparting of the primordial regression technique had left him especially happy as well, as though he could feel the danger. Because Wang Zheng could already feel that the opponent had shown himself. He was simply looking for a chance to strike, and the opponent must know of them as well. At that level, it was impossible to completely hide Wei, but Wang Zheng could only feel the opponent's presence, and was unable to see more. This was the difference in their level. But the opponent probably did not know that they knew of his presence, which was an advantage. But all experts made the same mistake, which was to think that everything was within their control, and in such a repressive situation, Wang Zheng found the possibility to improve. From the start, Bonehead's training methods had been uncommon. He had been forced into revelations when nearing death. In the Rubik's Cube, the idea of life and death did not exist. Now, they were outside the cube, but Wang Zheng could not change his own method of improvement. The more risky, the more his life was on the line, the more it was so. And now, what Wang Zheng wanted was for Achilles and Lai Xin to protect the rest, while he went to face this heaven alone. Because he knew that this time, heaven had not come alone. He had to ensure that Yi Zissou and the rest were safe. To him, that would be the fatal thing. One in the light, and one in the shadows. Two killers. The opponent had indeed paid a heavy cost. Elite Academy. Lear had just come out of the Mecha Design Lab. This was his superclass runic mecha. He would definitely be involved in the entire process. A customized mecha was like a second life. He would use this holiday to master the networks of Elite Academy well. The mentors, the school administration, the students. But this did not mean that his ears were not pricked. That Achilles and Lai Xin had gone to Tita Star, and at Wang Zheng's behest, made Lear extremely unhappy. Why? Tita Star was now a troubled place. Honestly, Lear always wanted to persuade Achilles and Lai Xin to conquer the solar system with him. Then, he could use the power as a fist to conquer the Milky Way. But Achilles and Lai Xin were of a different mind. Tita Star was already chaotic enough. Then he would add fat to the fire. He would make sure they stayed there forever. He had heard the scenery was not bad there. Since he could not use them, then he must seize the opportunity to eliminate them. In Elite Academy, Lear saw a bigger world. and the hidden secret powers of the Kronos family had fanned the flames of Lear's ambition. He ultimately believed that his own power was the nucleus. As the king, he did not need to take to the battlefield. He would use other methods to accomplish his aims. He really wanted to figure out how Wang Zheng and the rest were able to survive the attempts of the Earth-grade assassin. It only costed an additional 50 million to kill 3 more. What a steal! Basking under the sunlight, Lear's smile was especially bright. To him, the world seemed like a chessboard with pieces that he could fiddle around with to his whim and fancy. This was all due to his inheritance. His power had been hidden rather well by the old man, and even till now it remained concealed. However, as his power started to increase, he began to gradually expose more of it. Lear was not anxious at all, for he wanted to enjoy this process of becoming king. From start to end, everyone else was merely the supporting cast to his story. He was fated to become the king of a new generation, a generation started by his very own hands. In order to be acknowledged for his power and obtain total domination, he still had to put up a good performance. He had to perfectly demonstrate the special qualities he possessed as the successor to the throne. No one would even be able to come close. In Menlo City, the inaugural trade conference for the Tita Supergravity Energy Ore was having its grand opening. Ambassadors from various embassies all began to arrive. Large corporations from related industries were in attendance as well. The conference this time was to be the first chapter in the development of the Tita Star's supergravity energy ore. This was undoubtedly an event of great significance. As a representative himself, Governor Mu Sen was naturally obliged to attend. Recently, Tita Titan Star was not exactly in a peaceful state, so security was fairly strict at the venue. After all, nothing untoward could happen to the attendees at this event, for one careless misstep could easily lead to an international-scale incident occurring. At this point of time, Lai Xin and Achilles were dressed as staff members. Lai Xin's presence still attracted a large amount of attraction. Beauty Lai was indeed remarkably attractive while dressed in the staff uniform. One would assume that Achilles' personality meant that he would not be able to pull the look off, but Achilles was surprisingly more invested than Lai Xin. Lai Xin was a little too cold as a staff member, whereas Achilles, despite being handsome, wore an superly professional smile on his face that was even sycophantic to some extent. This was a very festive day for the people of Tita, so a majority of them liked to organize large events on this day. Organizing some large event would also serve to disperse the haze of misfortune that shrouded Tita Star recently. Mu Sen hosted the mining conference while Lan Ling paid a visit to the media events of the strategic partners of Little Lucky Star Tita Investment Company. On the other hand, the Titan Rara Durai organized a giant's brawl on this day. This plethora of activities served as a retort against the recent terrorist events. Similarly, Titan Rara Durai's unscathed appearance also helped to quash some rumors regarding the Titan sustaining heavy injuries and being close to death. A mighty Titan was definitely the symbol of strength for the people of Tita. Additionally, the Titan's attitude was also a key factor in the current preservation of peace and stability on Tita Star. Only a few people in the know could not help but be worried. What exactly were the thoughts of the Tita people? The reality of the situations was that things had clearly been a mess recently. The feared assassin was still around, and they were not working alone. There was not enough time to hide from them, for they actually split up before making their approach. It was clear that on this day, trouble would befall one of these 3 places. All that remained to be seen was whether the target would be Mu Sen, Rara Durai or Lan Ling. The mantra of always being prepared did not really apply much to experts. As long as they showed their face, they would be in life-threatening danger. At this moment, however, the main character Wang Zheng had disappeared. The preparations at the 3 venues were rather lively. The attendees all acted like it was no big deal, but many were waiting in excitement. Peace was not easily attainable. The moment that the supergravity ore was discovered, Tita Star could no longer remain as the tranquil place it once was. If not for the Milky Way Alliance's current overall stability, the military might of the Milky Way Alliance's government would have resulted in things being far more serious than it presently was. The incident this time would surely have been more than something as simple as a lone assassin. Mu Sen was all smiles as he shook hands and embraced a group of his old friends. He became accustomed to these things over time. When it came to the heaven-swaying negotiation skills of mankind, Mu Sen was able to adapt very quickly. Others from Tita would likely have not been able to do the same. His appearance this time was highly risky, but Mu Sen was actually not afraid of death at all. The people of Tita had a different perception of death than mankind. However, at such a crucial moment for Tita Star, Mu Sen could not afford to die at all costs. As such, strict precautions were taken to protect Mu Senator. After all, there were ambassadors from many nations present as well. Both the venue and the area surrounding it was full of people, so even if the Earth-grade assassin appeared, it would surely be a path of no return for them. After all, in this era of explosive weapons, people were merely flesh and bone after all. Furthermore, the assassin was not just a human bomb. He had to finish his assassination objective, yet had to escape alive as well. As a result, the situation was still considered alright at this moment. However, it was definitely unacceptable to be relaxed. Lai Xin and Achilles were only set aside for the sake of Wang Zheng's complete plan. In actual fact, when it came to the present situation on Tita Star, it was alright for anyone to be missing except Mu Senator. Nobody else could be as perfect as Mu Sen in coordinating the relations between the people of Tita and mankind. Substituting anyone else in his place would surely lead to a collapse. "Boss, are we really fine like this?" Yan Xiaoshu asked as he crouched. At present he was disguised as one of the sages of Tita. Due to the discrepancy in his height, he had to crouch down. Wang Zheng laughed. "Nobody asked you to do that. Hey, I feel like this would be slightly safer. Che, you believe that the assassin would definitely rush towards Rara Darai, but if it was me, I would definitely trouble Mu Sen instead." "Oh, think about it, at present Mu Sen would definitely be the most important on Tita Star. In fact, the Titans don't really care about things, and they even have the scariest vibes. If one wanted for things to go smoothly, one should go over to Lanling. The shields would definitely be down there. Why would they come looking for the Titan?" Wang Zheng shook his head. Mu Sen and Lanling's side may face some problems as well, but it will not be due to heaven. Could it really be that there are more? Heaven would never kill mercenaries. Why? If I was in his shoes and found out that Tita hired mercenaries to kill me, I would definitely find a chance to get rid of them first. Yan Xiaoshu did not quite understand. Do you think that the Earth-grade experts are just ordinary street goods? These are two groups of people that kill on sight. Nobody really knows who hired Heaven, but despite being an assassin, an expert like him would surely have his own principles and would not easily deviate from his previous modus operandi. On the other hand, the other type would be more likely to loot from a burning house. Out of 10 of them, 8 or 9 of them are likely to be stakeholders in Tita's internal affairs. Are you that certain? Nope. Yan Xiaoshu was stunned. Was he for real? I'm not a god after all. Judging from the other side's style, they do not seem to want to disrupt Tita's current situation, but want to let Mu Sen reach a compromise instead. If Mu Sen were to die, this would involve the ambassadors from various countries as well, and would heighten things to the level of the Milky Way alliance. Various empires would intervene, and the one behind these things would certainly not benefit in any way from such a rapid escalation of things. You mean to say that from the start of it all the goal of the other side was just to threaten? That's the basic gist of things. As such, Rara Darai would be their first choice. Of course, if a compromise isn't reached, they would probably carry on one after another until the people of Tita concede. I'm afraid that these people tend to be very arrogant. Given that the poison afflicting Rara Darai has been cured, if it were you, what would you do? I would keep getting up every time I fall. Furthermore, perhaps they don't even think that we can deal with them. Yep, that's why I believe that they will definitely come here. Then why did you still let Lai Xin and Achilles go over there? Wang Zheng laughed. The one who massacred the mercenary squad was definitely not lacking in strength either. Besides, this group of people could be the local tyrants of Tita, so the defense mechanisms put into place may not be that reliable. They are the ones who would lose out if Tita no longer remained in chaos. Perhaps they don't even think that far ahead either. To them, killing anyone else would not be as effective as killing Mu Sen, for as long as Mu Sen stays alive, the people of Tita would never cooperate with them. Different people would have different ways of reasoning. This was unfortunately the result of the scenario created a while back by Mu Sen and Lan Ling. The one who truly held control over things was certainly not Lan Ling, but was Mu Sen instead. This was clear to those people as well. Ordinarily they would definitely not dare to act, but they could take advantage of the recent events involving Assassin Heaven and pin it on him instead. This was the conclusion that Zissou and I came to after much analysis. Wang Zheng laughed. F***ck, you're still so carefree despite knowing that the Earth-level experts are coming. The bunch of idiots outside are useless, Yan Xiaoshu anxiously remarked. Wang Zheng shrugged, if not, why don't you give it a try in a moment? Yan Xiaoshu was stunned. F***ck, one of his fingers would be enough to crush me. I think I'll just humbly cheer from the sidelines instead. No one was more familiar with this gaze of Wang Zheng than Yan Xiaoshu. When he was excitedly awaiting something, his expression was different from others. The more unperturbed and relaxed he seemed, the more eagerly he was awaiting. This meant that the adversary had given rise to a strong sense of attraction in him. Wang Zheng leisurely drank the tea that was served to him by the hospitable people of Tita. Outside, the giants were already sparring in full frenzy. When it came to understanding a person, there are times when you can judge them just by their ability. In fact, while curing the internal poison that afflicted Rara Durai, the two of them were considered to have already crossed paths once before. Rara Durai's appearance was an undeniably large inspiration to the giants. The current giants of Tita were basically still living in a period of colonial naivety. They truly believed that the Titans remained unrivaled. Of course, such beliefs would gradually change with time, but at present it would be a huge problem if something happened to Rara Durai. Wang Zheng and Yan Xiaoshu were unquestionably enjoying the best treatment. The excited smiles on Rara Durai and the giants' faces and their pure passion for battle really made Wang Zheng feel like joining in as well. All of a sudden, Wang Zheng's smile vanished. Stay here and don't move. Wang Zheng adjusted his clothes and walked towards the outside. Rara Durai and Shan Meng clearly took notice of this and wanted to go to him, but Wang Zheng waved his hand and scuttled towards the forest in a flash. Not far in the distance was a swiftly moving shadow. However, the other party did not seem to be going all out, and was waiting for Wang Zheng instead. A few minutes later, the shadow stopped. Wang Zheng slowed down as well. Earth-grade Assassin Heaven. The sound of these words were enough to make one excited. A blond man in his late 30s sat in the treetops with a leaf hanging like a cigarette from his mouth. There was a wanton and unrestrained aura about him. The blond man sized Wang Zheng up, and Wang Zheng did the same as well. Based on the nature of his powers, he was the one who harmed Rara Durai. Heaven. The blond man gave a slight smile and leapt down from the tree. I thought that a colleague of mine had come. Didn't expect it to be a boy from the academy. To my surprise, you could actually see through my ability. What's your name? Heaven did not really hold any contempt for Wang Zheng, or else he would not have been interested in knowing his name. Wang Zheng, from Elite Academy's Azure Dragon region. Wang Zheng replied. He wanted to see how Heaven would respond. A hint of a smirk emerged from the corner of Heaven's mouth. Azure Dragon I used to be from Black Tortoise. You don't suppose that I will spare your life just because we have such a connection Wang Zheng smiled. Senior must be joking. Don't hold back, I really want to experience the close combat skills of the Earth-grade experts as well. It seems like you're rather confident in your body's abilities. Heaven laughed. Why do you want to get involved in such trouble? Could it be that the Academy still insists on shoving down notions of righteousness down its students' throats? Time to give up on such ideals already. Heaven's smile had a hint of derision to it. You correctly deduced that I would come looking for you and you've got guts as well. If you leave now, I'll act as though nothing ever happened. Wang Zheng shook his head. They are my friends. I live if they live, die if they die. Heaven guffawed. Friends. How meaningful. I'll fulfill your request then. The silhouette of Heaven's body vanished in a flash, but Wang Zheng remained expressionless. However, the blood in his body was already starting to flare up. Ever since the breakthrough he achieved with the primordial regression technique, his entire body was filled with an insatiable impulse. Even though he was not able to satisfy such an urge even at the level of the previous elite competition, this was not something that could be done in a single battle. In Wang Zheng's current state, he was able to release such murderous energy only in life or death situations. Wang Zheng had no intention of evading at all. With a thud, he rushed forward with a volcanic roar. Leaning landslide. Bang. The two men crashed into each other. Heaven did not dodge either and took the full brunt of Wang Zheng's leaning landslide. Honestly speaking, old Joe was not cut out for battle, but Heaven, who was right before him, definitely was. The impact unexpectedly caused Heaven to be knocked back. Wang Zheng twisted his body and advanced. He unleashed a flurry of fists with a strong intent of advancing forward. Clang! It was all in vain as Heavens drifted away weightlessly. How meaningful. You specialize in body techniques. It's no wonder that you can understand my wood technique. In the next instant, Heaven's voice was already right beside Wang Zheng. The sound of fists rushed towards Wang Zheng's eardrums. Wang Zheng chose not to evade at all. Turning his neck, he struck his elbow out directly. His opponent gasped in surprise, and Wang Zheng followed up with a series of karate chops. However, this had completely no effect. The assassin was no pushover after all. Clang! Heaven had slipped away once again. He wore a strange smile on his face. Such a strong body technique reveals that you're probably from the solar system. What family are you a descendant of? I have no allegiances and am just a nobody. Wang Zheng's my name. Since you're an Earth-grade ability X user, surely you're not useless without your mecha, right? Wang Zheng laughed. While mecha combat and ordinary brawling shared some similarities, there were certainly differences as well, such as in the exertion of strength. Based on Heaven's self-confidence in daring to approach Rara Darai, he definitely had some faith in his own abilities. Just as he was finishing his sentence, Wang Zheng felt a heavy thump on his chest. He resisted and slid back as a series of karate chops followed after. He intended to dodge them but could not react in time, so his neck endured a blow as a result. Bang! An additional kick connected with his abdomen and his body was thrown back through the air. As he was falling through mid-air, a series of vicious slanted kicks came next. Crash! The ground split open, and Wang Zheng was trapped in the earth. Heaven gracefully landed. My little child, never ever underestimate your seniors. You should be glad that you're not on my list. Heaven turned his back to leave. This young fellow was quite interesting but was still rather inexperienced. He still had to complete his mission after all. Reputation remained important even in the underworld. As of now, Heaven still maintained a 100% success rate with the assignments that he had accepted. The victor doesn't seem to have been decided. Wang Zheng got to his feet. It had been a long time since he had been beaten up so violently. His opponent indeed had some frightening speed. However, there was insufficient strength behind his blows, or at least not enough to defeat Wang Zheng with. Heaven stared for a moment. With a shudder of his body, his silhouette stretched into a thin line and a fist flew straight towards Wang Zheng. This time, Wang Zheng was able to see it coming. It was slightly better than before, but he was still unable to deflect the hit. His brain felt like a car had ran over it. His whole body flipped over as Heaven raised his leg to kick Wang Zheng right in the center of his chest. This kick solidly connected with Wang Zheng, but Wang Zheng managed to grasp onto Heaven's leg with his arms, and returned with a kick of his own. Bang! The two of them were torn apart. Wang Zheng wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth. His thigh hurt like hell, but man was it F***C King satisfying. In the Rubik's Cube, every training session was more cruel than the last. Bonehead never took into consideration whether Wang Zheng would be able to handle it. It was indeed a stimulating experience. Despite getting kicked, Heaven did not really seem to be hurt at all. He was able to easily block the blow with a chi shield. This fellow only had flesh-based powers, yet he was still able to last so long. This piqued Heaven's interest. Azure Dragon Zon Class 1 standards are pretty good Wang Zheng laughed. Heaven, my brother, you've gotten it wrong. I'm from Azure Dragon's Huang Class 7. Heaven's expression hardened. He suddenly let out a huge laugh. Interesting. It seems like you only specialize in body techniques. These stupid elite schools only stick to one way of evaluating your abilities. Huang Class 7, haha. I'd feel too much like a bully if I just rushed a Huang Class 7 like you down. If you manage to deal with my next 3 moves, I'll call it a day. Wang Zheng shook his head. Heaven, my brother, would it be possible for you to give up on your mission? Rara Darai and Mu Sen are my friends. If you wish to kill them, I will have to stop you no matter what. Heaven laughed, if you kill me, things will naturally come to a conclusion. As he finished his sentence, Heaven's smile was frozen in place. This kid clearly did not know his place. He seemed to truly believe that Heaven was not able to kill him. Wang Zheng wasted his breath on attempting to persuade Heaven because he could tell that Heaven pulled some punches while he was attacking Rara Darai. There was no way that Rara Darai could have recovered so quickly otherwise. However, it now seemed like a duel to the death was inevitable anyway. Taking a deep breath, Wang Zheng tapped onto his primordial regression technique once again. The stagnant qi in his body immediately rushed out and his pupils emitted beams of light that pierced towards Heaven like a sharp knives. It was necessary for Wang Zheng to use the true extent of his abilities. Heaven was the strongest opponent he had come across so far. If he did not give it his all, he would definitely die on this very day. Wind Dash. Since they were on Theta Star, it was time to use such a move. This was where Wang Zheng gained his understanding of wind-based abilities after all. Wang Zheng disappeared in the blink of an eye, but at almost the exact moment, Heaven made his move as well. The Earth-grade Heaven had an even more perfect understanding when it came to the use of wind-based abilities. This was also why he dared to come here unaccompanied. Under the environment of Theta Star, the use of these abilities came naturally to him. Their positions switched back and forth continuously. Wang Zheng was extremely patient in dealing with such an expert, for a single moment of carelessness would inevitably lead to serious problems. Heaven was amazed as well. This person was actually a wind-type ability user as well. However, his use of ability X did not seem to be as elegant as his body technique. Sensing a difference in speed, Heaven attacked, bang. A karate chop struck out towards Wang Zheng's neck, but Wang Zheng tilted his head to dodge it and shot out his right hand in response. He was not attacking, but was merely holding on to Heaven's left hand. Wang Zheng was no match for Heaven when it came to speed. He knew this from the start, so Wang Zheng wanted to match his opponent in levels of desperation instead. Once his right hand latched on, Wang Zheng held an iron grip on his opponent's arm, leading to Heaven's expression souring as well. With his right hand, Heavens threw a punch towards Wang Zheng at lightning speed. Wang Zheng suffered several blows in this period of time, but his right hand remained stubbornly attached to Heaven. All of a sudden, Wang Zheng went for a headbutt. This was known as the lethal battle on Blade's Edge during Bonehead's training. There used to be a dueling method in the past where both duelists had knife blades behind their feet. In such a situation, retreating was not an option, and they could only fight to the death. When dealing with such an expert opponent, Wang Zheng knew from the start that he was not planning to compete based on skill or technique. He was going to rely on his greatest strengths, his body technique and his fearlessness of death. The rash feared the violent while the violent feared the fearless. Regardless of whether one was an expert or a novice, under such a situation, everything depended on how one chose to react. Heaven had to deal 10 or so punches to Wang Zheng before Wang Zheng even seemed to be affected. At the same time, Wang Zheng's was also exerting a lot of strength to keep his right hand on Heaven. Heaven's close combat abilities were not bad either. He attempted various flips in order to free himself from Wang Zheng. However, Wang Zheng was even better at close combat for he had a wealth of experience in these situations. As a result, these escaping attempts meant that Heaven was simply giving up more chances to attack Wang Zheng. There was probably nobody who had seen Wang Zheng going all out like this. Theorizing about killing someone and actually doing it was two entirely different concepts altogether. Both parties were both going at each other with full intention to kill. Wang Zheng gradually increased his frequency of counter-attacking. He truly believed that he was better than anyone else when it came to lasting longer in fights. Bruises started to accumulate on Heaven's handsome face. Wang Zheng broke the bridge of Heaven's nose in a single punch despite Heaven having the upper hand. Heaven even conjured a windshield to defend himself, but it was not enough to block the blow. He wanted to free himself from Wang Zheng's right hand, but there was no way at all for him to do so. If not for the strength he was concentrating on his arm may have even been ripped off altogether. This lunatic's fingers were as tough as steel nails. The only way for him to break free was to tear off his own arm. Boom! Heaven's right hand latched onto Wang Zheng's arm. Kid, you definitely didn't learn this from school. Typical elite academy students were definitely not ruthless to such a degree. As he spoke, Heaven's arm suddenly rotating. He attempted to break Wang Zheng's arm into two. One could almost hear the sound of bones breaking. Crack. Heaven was taken aback. Wang Zheng's left arm had been dislocated and flipped over. At the same moment, however, Wang Zheng's knee shot out towards Heaven. Bang! This time there was solid contact with Heaven. Heaven was dazed for a moment. This seemed to have been Wang Zheng's intention all along. The severe pain of an arm dislocating seemed to not bother this brat even one bit. Upon landing his first hit, Wang Zheng followed up closely with a hard-hitting headbutt. At this moment, all of his body was his weapon. With a resounding crash, Heaven was hit while standing, and a wave of dizziness came over him. There was no way this was just a student from an elite academy. This was practically a duel in hell. While Heaven had faced opponents who were unafraid of death, it was rare for him to come across someone who used his entire body as a weapon and treated death with such a calm attitude. This was definitely impossible with insufficient training, yet this was merely a Huang grade student. It must be said that for whatever reason, Heaven's past memories would always remain deeply etched in his mind wherever he went. Heaven's ability X erupted and lifted Wang Zheng up. Despite this, Wang Zheng's hand remained firmly latched onto Heaven. Unless Heaven's arm was broken, he would never be able to break free. Wang Zheng was fully aware of the discrepancy in power when it came to their ability X's. Up to this point of time, Heaven was basically relying only on body technique to engage him in pure physical combat without using any wood element abilities yet. Bang! Heaven's entire body shimmered with blinding light. In this moment Wang Zheng's body felt like it was being struck by 1,000,000 Fords worth of high-voltage electric shocks. His body weakened quickly, and if not for the primordial regression technique's strong defensive capabilities, he would have been utterly defeated. Wang Zheng was flung away. Heaven tested his arm out. His left arm had already been split open and his bones were exposed. What a crazy kid. When Heaven was a kid, he definitely did not have even half the tenacity of this opponent of his. Wang Zheng tumbled over numerous times after being thrown to the ground. He attempted to get back on his feet as Heaven fixed his hair. If I were you, I would just quietly lie down now. In this world, the lives of others are nothing compared to our own. Wang Zheng stood up quickly. He was in a wreck, but his face still held a slight smile. Some people remain alive even after dying. Others continue to live, but living on is no different from dying to them. While old Zhou had already passed away, he would continue to live on in Wang Zheng's heart. Wang Zheng would continue to spread old Zhou's ideals, much like how old Zhou stayed alive for his comrades' sake. Heaven's expression faltered slightly, but he quickly recovered. I'll satisfy your wishes to your heart's content, and will send your friends to join you soon after. A flash of lightning bolted towards Wang Zheng and he hurriedly dodged it. The ground where he stood before was charred black and the heavy stench of rot emitted from it. Wang Zheng knew where such speed came from. The ability to use such devastating lightning while preaching at people, unfortunately this could only have been due to the use of wood element powers. Such power was both terrifying and unpredictable. Wood element powers were definitely not simply restricted to the manipulation of wind. This was an Earth-grade expert indeed. Wang Zheng was careful never to underestimate them. When it came to body technique, their standards could not match up to him, but when it came to ability X, there was definitely no leeway allowed. Crash. Boom. Bang. After dodging several lightning bolts in succession, Wang Zheng was finally struck by one. This was immediately followed by the venom that started to pool near his feet. While it was known as a venom, this was in fact a technique that was considered an absorption ability within the wood element. This was a rather high-level technique as well. This was similar to the one used on the Titan. However, the Titan was a symbol of life, whereas Wang Zheng was a mere human. Such an absorption ability was enough to wipe him out if he was struck. Heaven was stunned for a moment. He did not actually intend to kill his opponent, but sometimes things did not go the way he intended. The sentimental version of himself was long dead. All that remained was an assassin without a past. It was time to settle this matter once and for all. Just as Heaven was preparing to leave, his body suddenly froze. How was this possible? While Wang Zheng was caught up in this duel to death, a huge incident was occurring back at Menlo City. An assassin was unexpectedly attempting to assassinate Governor Mew's senator. Security was indeed far too poor at the event, so the assassin was in fact able to effortlessly blend in with the crowd. The entire hall was in a state of disarray. Almost everyone at the venue was a person of importance, so they naturally had their own bodyguards, but there was insufficient distance between them. This assassin was skillful indeed and appeared out of thin air. What originally seemed like an ordinary flower vase suddenly became an assassin in the blink of an eye. Mew Sen was almost within reach. In 2 more seconds, he would be reduced to a corpse. This assassin even possessed shape-shifting abilities. The assassin's body came to a halt in midair. A force field ability was stopping him. The assassin, code-named Black Widow, held a frozen expression. He had no time to waste. Once the chaos was controlled, he would be trapped in a dead end for sure. Before that happened, he had to kill Mew Sen. The countless threads in the assassin's hands enveloped towards Mew Sen, but a beautiful lady appeared to block his path. The custom-made steel threads continued forward. If they were to tie her up, the beauty would be sliced into pieces instantly. Splash! The steel threads did not latch onto her, but were blocked by an invisible force field instead. At this moment Black Widow realized that his chance was gone, so he retreated immediately. However, with a loud crash, half the hall collapsed. Amidst the complete chaos and confusion of the situation, Achilles escorted Mew Sen out. This could not be helped. Lai Shin's harbored an overwhelming amount of murderous energy within her heart. The Lai Flame technique was far more terrifying than imagined. Legend had it that the Lai Flame technique was the strongest offensive technique among the traditional techniques of the solar system. In the past, the technique was already known to be very effective in dealing with various different races. After all, Mars was the main battlefield upon which humans waged war against the Zerg. That assassin was of a lower standard than Earth grade. He was at around the same level as the two were previously, with perhaps slightly sharper skills in niche abilities like shapeshifting and thread control. However, Lai Shin's abilities were a little too astonishing for him to handle. In that moment of attack, she was practically a rocket launcher. From the moment she started to use her abilities, Achilles knew that this woman's true goal was not to target the assassin, but purely to vent her anger instead. The assassin was engulfed by flames in a flash, and even cracked open half the conference hall. She was practically a female T-Rex. Achilles did not really care. His sole duty was to protect Mew's senator. This time Wang Zheng owed him a huge favor. Even if people from the moon did not really care about owing favors, they had to be remembered when it came to Wang Zheng. Once the ashes scattered away, a group of police and giants gathered around the area. The situation had calmed down and only Lai Shin was left. She really wished that the steel threads had shredded her into pieces instead. Achilles should have minded his own business. Lai Shin glared at Achilles angrily. A certain someone seemed to assume that he was innocent in not letting Lai Shin be able to die. Lai Shin snorted in anger and turned around to leave. Someone tried to stop her, but Mew Sen quickly gestured to let her pass. This was the first time that such a terrifying flame technique was witnessed on Theta Star. This woman's temper was at its peak. Mew Sen had been close enough to sense that rather than wanting to kill the assassin, she seemed to wish that the assassin had killed her instead. Her intentions could not be hidden from the wise ones. The giants and people from the Lan family had arrived to blockade off the scene. The next step was to investigate the incident thoroughly. However, Mew Sen had already sensed that the assassin was not that skilled, and was definitely not the same person who had ambushed Rara Durai. At this point in time, Mew Sen could not help but worry about Wang Zheng. On the other hand, there was some trouble at Lan Ling's side as well. However, it was more of a joke than a serious matter. Someone actually faked a bomb threat at the venue in order to attempt to create some chaos. But this was child's play and Yi Zixu remained calm. She was never worried about Lan Ling's venue. All she could think about now was Wang Zheng's side. She originally wanted to be with the people of Tita together with Yan Xiaoshu, but Wang Zheng instructed her to come here instead. Yi Zixu was reluctant, but she was willing to listen to Wang Zheng's orders. During the entire meeting her thoughts were elsewhere, and others may have thought that this was because Miss Yi was afraid. In actuality, Yi Zixu had more guts than most of the people present. Never underestimate a persistent woman's courage. They were perfectly prepared, But if anything were to happen to Wang Zheng and Rara Darai, this would be akin to spoiling the ship for a half-penny worth of a tar. Wang Zheng's self-confidence gave those around him confidence as well. However, only Wang Zheng himself knew that there was a limit to his skill and he always had to give it his all. He was never really certain about anything. Up until now, he simply tried his best every time. This time was no different. Wang Zheng locked Heaven down. Heaven was shocked. He never expected that his opponent would be unaffected by his venom. This venom was a marvelous technique that he developed after becoming Earth grade, and was one of the most high-end abilities within the wood element powers. It was unimaginable that it had no effect at all on Wang Zheng. Wang Zheng was waiting for this very moment. He knew that his opponent would have absolute confidence, but the primordial regression technique had already gained sufficient understanding towards these types of powers, so when he was afflicted by such powers, he was able to resist it much better. There was a moment of opportunity now, but Wang Zheng did not go for a direct attack. If he were to miss, this Earth-grade assassin would not give him any more opportunities. As such, Wang Zheng chose to completely lock down Heaven and not give him any chances at all. However, at this moment a fervent energy violently surged forth from Heaven's body. Wang Zheng had no strength left to attack, for all his efforts were focused on not being flung away by this surge of power. If he were to be flung away, there would be no hope left for him. Heaven's pupils glowed with a strong light as his body charged up with electrical energy. A frantic current rushed towards the sky. Wang Zheng's hair was completely blown back by the impact, but he continued to stubbornly lock Heaven down. There was no other option left. The Earth-grade ability X far surpassed his level of understanding. Wave after wave of ability X rushed at him without any signs of abating. He could not let Heaven slip away here. If they fought in a different place, Heaven would probably have more tricks up his sleeve. On Theta Star, however, even if one had a strong understanding of the complementary nature of the 5 elements, fire and ice combinations were prohibitively difficult to use. The only combination that could be effectively harnessed was wind and fire. A violent hurricane formed all around Heaven as he attempted to fling Wang Zheng out. At this moment, a spark ignited. Bang! Furious flame spirals surged towards the sky. In a flash, Wang Zheng and Heaven were enveloped within the blaze. Wang Zheng tapped on Heaven's wind powers to fuel his own fire powers. At the very least, mutual destruction would be assured. Wang Zheng would never let Heaven leave. Despite being an Earth-grade expert, Heaven never expected Wang Zheng to pull off a move like this. It was already amazing for a body technique expert to be able to use wind powers. The fact that a Huang-grade student was able to exhibit the level of control required to utilize fire powers on Theta Star was something that was entirely beyond Heaven's imagination. Heaven was unprepared for such a maneuver. The flames were burning unrestrainedly, and even more important was the fact that his opponent had a level of understanding of regenerative abilities that made one's hair stand on end. The flames continued to spread wildly with the hurricanes. The extent of burning led to a situation where even the firestarter himself could not dream of escaping. While Wang Zheng's move seemed like one that led to mutually assured destruction, there was a sliver of hope left for him still. The fact was that his body's ability to sustain damage was better than Heaven's. Even if Heaven was an Earth-grade expert, he did not necessarily have such tenacity. However, he had underestimated the Earth-grade expert's grasp of ability X powers. Bang! The fire tornadoes violently split apart. The burning silhouettes of the two men were thrust away from each other. In a flash, the flames spread out to fill the sky like a dazzling display of fireworks. Honestly speaking, it had been an extremely long time since Heaven was in such a sorry state. The last time was probably when he was still carrying out missions in the abyss. This brat seemed intent in killing both of them, all of the sake of saving some irrelevant person? Wang Zheng really hated failing by falling short right at the end. Even the power of lightning was not enough to fatally paralyze him, yet at this moment his willpower was already pushed to its utmost limit. Even if he was somehow able to surpass the limits of his determination, he would be unable to deal with actual power at this point. An explosion. Within the wood element, there was a different power that was different from the speed and paralysis of electricity. This was the explosiveness of lightning. However, the intention of this explosion was not to harm, but rather to separate the two men. This was a demonstration of the skill and experience of an Earth-grade expert. Others would probably have been at wit's end much earlier in the fight, but an Earth-grade expert would always find a way to respond to the situation. Such knowledge was gained from countless battles. Heaven did not know whether to laugh or cry. He could not believe that he was being pushed to such extents on such an insignificant and uncivilized planet. At the very least, this last move would be too much for that brat to bear. Heaven paced towards Wang Zheng. Wang Zheng wanted to get to his feet, but the explosion that just occurred was still suppressing his primordial regression technique. The chi in his body was still in complete disarray and he could not move even though he wanted to. This was the difference between the Zon grade and the Earth grade. Wang Zheng's strength was definitely at the level of the Zon grade, but Heaven was an Earth grade expert, and was even of the combat type as well. At his age, Heaven was also probably in peak condition. Perhaps if they were fighting in Mecha instead, there would be still some variables that could change the outcome of the battle. However, in a direct fight like this, these variables were non-existent. Wang Zheng did not dare to use his mecha because he suspected that his opponent possessed an even stronger mecha. He would not have guessed that there would be no difference either way. Freeze. A person emerged from the forest with a gun in hand. Move again and I'll blast your head off. Yan Xiaoshu staggered out from the woods. Heaven stopped in his tracks. A sneer emerged from the corner of his mouth. He must have been drunk. He was so focused on the battle that he did not even notice an ordinary person appear. Bang! Yan Xiaoshu pulled the trigger. This was a hunting rifle that was specifically used to hunt wild cheetah beasts. Even a 10-ton animal would be tranquilized if it was hit by it. The bullet was blocked by some unknown force and fell into Heaven's hands. Yan Xiaoshu was terrified. This person was able to catch a bullet with his bare hands. Was he even human? Heaven casually tossed the bullet away. Fatty, when you're trying to kill someone your hand can't afford to tremble. Wang Zheng did not imagine that Yan Xiaosu would actually come over. He even warned everyone repeatedly that even if it was Rara Durai or Yan Xiaoshu, nobody was to come over. An expert like this could not be defeated by numbers alone. In the end, Yan Xiaoshu still came over. Wasn't this bastard the most afraid of death? As he watched Heaven approach, Yan Xiaosu's mind went blank. He was doomed for sure this time. What a pity that he was unable to pick up more girls in his lifetime. Well, at least he had nothing more to lose. He aimed his rifle at Heaven and shot at him randomly. Heaven was truly unlucky. He was exhausted, so if he were to actually be hit by the gun it would definitely be a problem. Bang! An air blast swept over and Yan Xiaoshu was thrown 10 meters back. Heaven swept the dust off his clothes. He did not expect a mere mortal to actually attempt to butt in here. Suddenly, Heaven's expression changed. He moved away instantly, but his body was thrown up uncontrollably. Bang! Wang Zheng had somehow appeared before Heaven in a flash and let out a direct punch towards him. Wang Zheng had a heavy aura of murderous energy around him at this very moment. Heaven's expression did not change by that much as he focused on defending himself. He was able to dodge Wang Zheng's attacks for a moment of time, but Wang Zheng was unexpectedly able to follow relentlessly and match Heaven's pace entirely. Bang! The chi shield was broken. A punch came into direct contact with Heaven's face, and 2 of his teeth flew out of his mouth in a flash. Heaven was stunned, but he was not slow to react. He attacked Wang Zheng with a succession of electric attacks, finishing off with a thunderous blast at Wang Zheng's body. However, Wang Zheng took the blow without much of a reaction. With a sudden roar, all of the energy was dissipated immediately. At this moment Heaven sensed that he was in danger, but it was too late for him to escape. His 2 arms were grabbed by Wang Zheng. With this puncturing grab, Wang Zheng's fingers pierced through him. Roar! Without any added flourishes, a direct punch smashed towards him. Bang! Heaven's guard was down. He felt several of his ribs breaking. At this moment, Wang Zheng's 2 eyes were red with fury and he was in a demon-like state. Heaven's expression darkened as he broke his left arm with a chop from his right in order to retreat. Wang Zheng had no intention of letting him go at all, and let out a sound that was as terrifying as a wild beast's roar. His arms suddenly shot out. Seng seng seng. Several firewheels rotated through the sky and radiated all around. This was an actual manifestation of wind and fire power. but under this demon-like state, there was no need for any modifications to it. Whoosh! With just a single slash, a deep cut surfaced on Heaven's abdomen. Upon seeing the crazy state that Wang Zheng was in, Heaven turned and dived into the forest, and disappeared just like that. Wang Zheng lost track of his target. His eyes remained red as he searched the four corners of the forest. He was not looking for Heaven, but was searching for Yan Xiaoshu instead. In Wang Zheng's mind, Yan Xiaoshu and the others were far more important than himself. The less family he had by his side, the more important his friends were to him. He found no trace of Yan Xiaoshu. With the Earth-grade expert's single attack, Yan Xiaoshu would have sustained heavy injuries even if he was somehow still alive. However, boss, how brave, how strong, Earth-grade experts ain't a big deal, you beat him up like a dog anyway. Yan Xiaoshu hopped over energetically from afar. He thought that he was doomed for just now, but he discovered that he was totally fine. Him being thrown back was about the same as riding a glider. The only small injury he suffered was a bruise on his ass as he landed. When he returned back, he definitely had to find a girl to massage it well for him. Upon seeing the energetic Yan Xiaoshu, Wang Zheng's blood-red eyes faded back to normal. He slowly suppressed his malevolent fervor, but upon getting a closer look at Yan Xiaoshu, Wang Zheng felt like fainting once again. This bastard certainly was a constant source of worry. Plump, student Wang decisively fainted. Aya, boss. Yan Xiaoshu anxiously rushed over while carefully checking his surroundings. The assassin better not return. Yan Xiaoshu was like a startled rabbit at this very moment and unleashed his true potential. He lifted Wang Zheng and started to run. If he was not even able to try his best when it came to running for his life, there was basically no other situation where he would be able to do so. One had to admit that sometimes people ended up doing unexpected things. Take the trashy Yan Xiaoshu for example. It would be an exaggeration to claim that the Earth-grade expert could murder him with just a fart, but at the same time murdering him would probably require as much effort as raising a hand. However, this coward who was usually afraid of death actually gathered the courage to sneak over here. This was truly something that no one would have expected. On the way back, he bumped into Lai Xin and the others. The giants, on the other hand, were really too obedient. Wang Zheng instructed them to stay, and they sincerely complied. Perhaps they were a little too honest in this case. Achilles and Lai Xin were shocked that Wang Zheng managed to defeat an Earth-grade expert. They both believed that this would have been possible only if the three of them worked together, yet Wang Zheng managed to do it alone. While Wang Zheng did not manage to get the kill, what he achieved was still shocking. At the level that his opponent was at, if he truly wanted to escape, it would have been superly difficult to stop them. Without any delay, Wang Zheng was sent to the hospital. The entire Tita Star was in total chaos either way. It seemed like an irreversible event had occurred. Many big cities imposed emergency measures and spaceports were placed on lockdown. People who were entering and leaving had to go through a stringent interrogation process. If anyone was to come across a man with broken arms, they were to report to the police immediately. A broken arm was unfortunately not that big of a deal to an Earth-grade assassin. Even more so, all of Tita Star sincerely hoped that the assassin left as soon as possible and never returned again. Rara Darai and the others looked at Yan Xiaoshu in a new light. Honestly speaking, they could not really sense any strength from Yan Xiaoshu at all. Their respect for him was originally due to his connection with Wang Zheng, but they did not expect that the feeble-looking Yan Xiaoshu was actually bold enough to face that devil head-on. This left a favorable impression on the giants, and now their respect for Yan Xiaoshu was entirely genuine. As for Tyrant Su, once he got to the hospital he immediately lay down. His stomach and legs were trembling. Non-stop and his entire body was drained of all energy. Zissou, am I dying? If I die, remember to send my ashes back. Oh right, if it's possible, could you burn a couple more pictures of pretty girls for me? Sigh. I am so young, yet I am not able to leave behind a descendant for the Yan family. Right? Tell old Yan to give birth to another child I guess. Yi Zissou did not know whether to laugh or cry. Her eyes were slightly swollen. It was apparent that the situation involving those two had frightened her. They were the most important people in her life after all. You fatty, good people don't pay with their lives while bad people live for 1,000 years. Death won't come so easily to you. But I have no energy left. I feel like my soul has left my body. That Earth-grade expert used a big move on me. I'm just an ordinary guy after all. Maybe I'm just experiencing terminal lucidity right now. You don't have to lie to me. I'm actually not that afraid of dying. Yan Xiaoshu continued to mumble. If you continue to be so long-winded, I'll beat you to death and call it a day. Yi Zisu could not resist being amused by Yan Xiaoshu. Doctor, you tell him. A group of doctors approached. Mr. Yan, we gave you a complete checkup. You only sustained some minor injuries. Your buttocks suffered slightly heavier damage and your tailbone sustained a small fracture. You will recover after no time after undergoing some treatment. But why do I feel so weak and why does everyone seem to be floating around me? Yan Xiaoshu replied. The moment he finished his sentence, Tyrant Su's stomach started to growl. The true reason was that, he was just hungry. The people of Tita were all waiting outside. Mu Sen, Khalifa and the other elders, the giants with Rara Durai leading them were all there. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief only when it had been confirmed that Wang Zheng was not in any mortal danger. In the past, Mu Sen seemed to be a little excessive in praising Wang Zheng's abilities. While the rest of the government did not seem to have much of an opinion, there was still occasional discomfort regarding this matter, especially when it came to the distribution of control over the supergravity energy ore. However, Khalifa and the others now developed newfound admiration for Wang Zheng. As Mu Sen's most loyal supporter, Khalifa also drummed up support among the others. The emergence of an assassin that could effortlessly defeat a titan indeed had a big impact on the mentality of the people of Tita. In their eyes they truly believed that the titans were unrivaled. They once assumed that humans were over-dependent on their mecha, and never expected them to be so strong even without their mecha after all. Joining the Milky Way Alliance wasn't the end, it was just a new beginning after all. From a particular point of view, it made perfect sense for mankind to govern the Milky Way Alliance. Their level of know-how and civilization was indeed at a stage where it was hard for other civilizations to reach. Wang Zheng was stuffed in a pod. This was the most advanced regenerative technology that Tita Star had at the moment. In actual fact, Wang Zheng's condition was not bad at all. The main thing was that his burst of primordial regression technique did not push him overboard fatally. If Yan Xiaoshu did not appear at that moment, the situation would have been far more dire. However, Yan Xiaoshu's timely appearance seemed to have quelled his inner demons completely. Tyrant Su was truly a panacea in this scenario. Everyone led different lives, and fate could work in mysterious ways sometimes. This had nothing to do with skill or ability. Some people continue to screw up throughout life, and Yan Xiaozu was a perfect example of someone like this. Yet in this battle, he was a hero as well. Rara Durai and his followers desperately wanted to become stronger, for they could not always rely on Ada to save them. As the guardians of Tita Star, Rara Durai and Shan Meng felt a slight sense of guilt. When did the giants become so useless? Your Honor, I believe that we should hasten our selection process. We need to choose the best warriors to form an elite squad. Shan Meng suggested. He had been getting stronger recently as well. Rara Durai nodded. I'll leave it to you then. Send out a decree to all of Tita's tribes. Announce that we will organize a nationwide warriors competition in order to select the most fearsome warriors. The winners, tribes will obtain a great prize. There was actually no need to incentivize such an event at all. After all, the giants of Tita only had one pastime, fighting. Alas, the brutish battle methods of the past were insufficient to protect Tita any longer. It was necessary for Rara Durai to make some changes. After Yan Xiaozu realized he was perfectly alright, he calmed down and gorged himself with food served by the pretty nurses attending to him. Seeing this, Yi Zisu left him to go check on Wang Zheng. When she arrived, only Lan Ling was present. Lan Ling quietly watched Wang Zheng lying submerged in nutrient fluid. It seemed like their first meetings were always like this. The previous time was like this as well. At least this time things were not that bad. In fact, she would prefer if Wang Zheng's arrivals would be uncomplicated and full of cheerful scenes free of any conflict instead of ones that were plagued by troubles. However, this seemed to be far too delusional a wish. It was not in Lan Ling's nature to be involved in conflict, yet she had no choice but to get used to it. This was no longer just a matter of concern for the Lan family, but affected the entire Tita Star as well. Only through perseverance and resolve could she prevent Tita Star from degenerating into just a planet for others to mine. She would not let the people of Tita be reduced to mere slave miners. If only Wang Zheng could stay and help her develop Tita Star. Such a thought made Lan Ling blush. Yi Zissou quietly closed the door behind her without Lan Ling noticing. Yi Zissou took a quick look at Lan Ling and immediately understood the situation. Girls tended to have an acute sixth sense after all. He would never slow down just for a girl. Yi Zissou commented. Lan Ling nodded. I understood that the first time I met him. Perhaps we are just not the correct ones for him. The correct person. Who? Was it Aina? Yi Zissou did not know the answer, but even Aina did not cause Wang Zheng to slow down. Wang Zheng would never be defined by his relationships. If Wang Zheng were to ever slow down one day, perhaps he would lose all his charm as well. People are full of such contradictions. Has heaven been found? We are approaching the matter systematically. A heavily wounded Earth-grade assassin is still far too much for us to handle. On this front, we need to invest more energy and time in order to ensure that a similar incident never happens again. Lan Ling quietly replied. Yi Zissou nodded. Be it Earth or Tita Star, they were still far from matching up to these experts. Perhaps this was not true of all of Earth, but OMG's knowledge was still inadequate, and they would be unable to find a solution if they encountered incidents like this. Wang Zheng was currently in deep slumber within his pod, but the primordial regression technique within his body continued to work. This was a significant battle for Wang Zheng. The primordial regression technique had an intention to defy the rules to achieve greater power. While there was indeed a breakthrough and the third stage was attained, it was still in an unstable state. If Wang Zheng was to keep to his ordinary routine and continue waiting, such power would gradually weaken to a stable level. However, this battle had boosted the primordial regression technique to an improved level. Its capabilities had been upgraded, yet its core power and stability had been preserved as well. If they were not limited to fighting on Tita Star, Wang Zheng's level of skill would have made it difficult for him to return in one piece after facing such an expert. If the Earth-grade expert truly wanted to kill him, the best outcome he could have hoped for was mutually assured destruction. The most effective way to increase his strength was to engage in battle, so at least student Wang did not lose out entirely. Him not being dead nor permanently disabled naturally meant that he had profited from the incident. Besides, there were two beauties worrying for him by his side. Lan Ling and Yi Zissou did not utter a single word, and just quietly gazed at Wang Zheng. When Lear got wind of the news, he was truly stunned. The Earth-grade assassin failed and had to escape with heavy injuries. Was this a joke? What about the customs of the underworld? What do you mean, young master? I took the first step and accepted your support, but you have failed to prove to me your worth. An Earth-grade assassin has been defeated by a Huang-grade student. Lear's voice was exceptionally calm, but there was a chilling quality to it. Kill heaven to prove to me that you all are of use. Lear shut off his skylink. His expression was stifled due to a variety of reasons, but he had no interest in that. Based on his understanding, since an Earth-grade assassin had failed his task, it was fairly obvious that he was as good as a pile of trash. In spite of everything, Wang Zheng did not die either. Due to the fact that this incident involved the high authorities of various powerful empires, at this point of time the underworld started to keep a low profile. In this period of time there would be nobody willing to accept assignments related to Tita Star anymore. Lear did not know who was meddling with Tita Star, but he sensed that the ones behind it had considerable power. He was merely riding on the coattails of others to achieve some his own goals, but failed to achieve anything in the end. The people of Tita played a brilliant move this time. The normal response here would be to cancel any further activities and protect their various consulates, but the people of Tita were stubborn about continuing to operate even after such confusion. Lear even suspected that the ambush on the leaders was in fact arranged by the people of Tita themselves. With such an uproar, Mu Sen and Lan Ling would be able to pressure the Milky Way alliance, and there would definitely be strong ripple effects that would lead to the crisis being dealt with in a short amount of time. In the face of such a brilliant maneuver, Lear could only go so far. Lear was able to meet gains or losses with equanimity. His biggest strength was his ability to control his emotions. He readily accepted the conclusion to this matter, and for now all he intended to do was to increase his own power. This was the best move now. After all, Wang Zheng and the others would still have to fix the mess created by this incident. They would only understand the consequences of not focusing their attention on him after they return.